All right. All right. Welcome back to More Up North. You know, I have a hell of a panel. That's all I can say. I say that every week, I think, and some weeks I'm just saying that because it's almost true. But this week we really do. I'm thrilled. Steve Heimel is here, and I'm always happy when Steve Heimel's here. He's Alaska broadcasting legend, and he was one of the first responders to the spill as a journalist. And we're going to be talking about the Exxon spill, of course, that happened here, and in light of what's going on right now in the Gulf of Mexico, what our best advice would be to them. And he is on APRN all the time. He's also known as the Old Bull Rider every Sunday on KNBA from noon to 3, which is one of my favorite shows on the radio. And I listen to a lot of radio. Charles Wolforth is here. He's a lifelong Alaskan resident, and I just found out was actually there when the first drops of oil came through the pipeline into Valdez. And you know, the story behind that, he too was one of the first responders, and he worked for 6 years as a newspaper reporter, including covering the Exxon Valdez for the ADN. He became a full-time freelance writer in '93 and published articles in the New Republic, Outside, Discover, other periodicals, and has written this book, The Fate of Nature, which I am in the middle of and enjoying very much. And so I'm glad you're both here from the first responder journalist side. Peter Van Tine is here. He's an attorney representing Alaska Native and conservation interests in environmental issues in Alaska, including onshore and offshore oil and gas, fisheries, marine conservation, mining, and wildlife and endangered species. He currently represents the Alaska village of Point Hope, Alaska Wilderness League, and Pacific Environment in litigation related to Arctic offshore oil and gas.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I think this is, you know, we were just talking to Hollis about, you know, people being involved, communities being involved in offshore and onshore developments, and obviously you're involved in a great extent with them. And Mary Beth Holloman is here, and I'm so glad she is. You have a remarkable reputation, shall we say. She's an author, teacher, and activist. She wrote The Heart of the Sound, An Alaskan Paradise Found, which is this book, Paradise Found and Nearly Lost, which is sadly too true, and Alaska's Prince William Sound, A Traveler's Guide, and The State of the Sound. And her essays, poetry, articles have been in lots of magazines. She's been on National Public Radio, and she lives in Anchorage with her husband, Dr. Rick Steiner, and her son, James Holloman. And your husband right now is actually in the Gulf.
He is.
And been reporting in on their radio show quite a bit.
Yes.
So I want to start with, how much PTSD do you think we're all feeling from watching the, seriously, I don't say that lightly, as we know, we've seen horrible cases of this, but I was watching, when I was first watching the spill in the Gulf, and I was seeing these brown ribbons, I could smell it. I felt like I could smell those fumes and that horrible odor that filled my, just filled every part of me for a summer. What was your reaction initially to this spill, Steve?
I didn't want to look at it. You know how sometimes you know there's a catastrophe happening in your life, you know, like you know, something went horribly wrong in your life, and it kind of makes you sick to your stomach, and you sort of like just shy away from it. And it was like a couple of days where I just didn't want to think about it. I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. Now it's kind of going the other way, and I'm totally obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of part and parcel of the same thing. I can even feel that I'm unnaturally obsessed with it. You know, I want to know all the little technical details, and I'm just dying to be there to try and grab people's lapels and ask them the right questions that I don't feel are being asked. You know, and I want to know. You know, people are not being straight about things. The lawyers have closed in, and you're just not finding anything out. It's just amazing. Everything's coming out in leaks. It's worse, really, than after the Exxon Valdez. And I think that would be one of the lessons that I'd try and bring out from this, is that we really need to find ways to get around this and move the information better, because it's gotten worse.
It has. Charles, what about you? When you first heard of this spill, having first been there when the first drops came through the Trans-Alaska Pipeline and getting to see it, well, that was quite a show, wasn't it?
Well, you know, and I think I have the same feeling as Steve, is sort of not wanting to think about it, sort of trying to pretend that it's not really happening. And then also talking with friends just this feeling of sorrow for the people who are going through what they're going through, knowing what's ahead of them. You know, that this is a trauma that people are going to be experiencing for, you know, another 20 years at least, and it's going to change their lives and change their relationship to the environment where they live. An area that in a lot of ways is very similar to the communities of Prince William Sound and coastal Alaska. And these little insular communities that are 100% related to fishing, have their own culture, have their own way of doing things, that never really had to engage with the outside world, and then suddenly the outside world, you know, comes in this horrible way and destroys their link to that place where they live. And to see that happening somewhere else is really, really tough.
I think we have a certain naivety too, that, or a suspension of disbelief maybe, that we can have it all, that we can have development and that we can have fisheries and we can have all of these different things and that we'll all be just fine. And when you learn right upside your head that you can't have it all, it's, I think, a difficult lesson.
I'll tell you, I had a similar reaction, a big pit in my stomach. It hasn't gone away. And then I had this weird thing going on with me. I just started scripting what people are going to say in my head, because I've been through this so many times. And then I'd say, wait a day, and it's going to be 180-degree difference. Two things. One, BP says, oh, the rig will not sink. It will not capsize. And within 12 hours, it was under. Then the Coast Guard says the spill has stopped. And I'm like, oh, how do you know that? It's 5,000 feet down. And 24 hours later, it's 1,000 barrels a day. 2 days later, it's 5,000 barrels a day. Well, that's the minimum number. Maybe it's 20,000, but it could be 25,000. And then yesterday we hear, well, maybe it's going to get to 65,000 barrels a day. And I just, how many times do we need to read the script? I mean, come on, Charles, you could write this stuff, right? But I don't know if fiction, you know, a novelist who does fiction could do that. I mean, it's too strange. It's just over and over again. It's Groundhog Day, and the pit is still there.
Yeah, are you having this strange obsession too that we all seem to have? First we had denial, and because I'm as guilty as anybody.
I mean, for me, it's what I do. So I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. This morning, I'm up at, you know, getting calls at 6 o'clock from lots of people around the country asking me for various pieces of information, and I'm doing that until the evening. And this is what I do. So I am embroiled in it, and it's every day, from early in the morning till late at night, and I don't know when it will end. I wish it would.
I know. Wouldn't you like to be put out of work because there wasn't
That's
an oil
always my
spill?
goal. Go skiing more.
Exactly. Exactly. And Mary Beth, what about you? I know you were present on the spill, and then now to watch this, how was it for you?
Well, you know, my first reaction was like Steve's. Oh God, no, I don't want to hear about it. I can't take it. You know, it's like life is going along with all of its ups and downs and everything, and then something like this drops in your lap, and it's like, no, this was not part of the plan. You know, and that feeling too, that just heart dropping into my stomach. I read a story about a woman my age who is down there, lives there, has lived there her whole life, and was waiting to go out and volunteer and do something, and was stuck waiting. No one had told her what she could do yet, waiting and looking at how the oil was progressing and seeing it hit all the places she loved one by one. And I remember doing that. And I was back there doing it again, pacing, trying to figure out what we could do, watching the oil advance across the Sound, hit Knight Island, Neliwan, you know, all the places I loved. And so mostly right now, I'm just really angry. I'm really angry that we did not learn those lessons then. I think the only ones that have learned lessons are the oil companies. They know how to get out of this faster. And you know, they know how to limit their liability.
Get out of it legally faster.
Get out of it legally faster.
How are they doing that?
Oh, it's amazing. They go
From a lawyer.
around. This is what's been reported. They're walking around coastal communities down there, and they're saying to people, "We'll give you $5,000 if you waive your claims." They're going to the fishermen who are going out there to try and respond to this, and they're saying, "Sign this contract." And what does the contract say? Well, you waive all claims of anything that might happen to you during this response. I mean, what is that? And then the third thing they're doing is they're taking people like Christine Todd Whitman, and I think it's outrageous. This is the former head of the EPA, and she writes an op-ed piece that's passed around in a bunch of papers by Bloomberg News and doesn't disclose it. She's paid $120,000 a year by BP as part of their advisory council. What does the op-ed say? Bad spill, this is a real problem, but it shouldn't stop offshore drilling.
That's called shill, baby, shill. You know, it's interesting that when Exxon, I was one of the first boats to go on contract with the Exxon Valdez. I was in Sitka herring tendering when it happened. And when the news came in, you know, all the fishermen came to the boat because we had a TV. It was a 110-foot boat. So we had a television. We were all watching it. And to hear the different reactions, I heard conspiracy theories of, they want to drill Prince William Sound, those bastards. And I heard, they need to burn it. And on the motoring up, I was listening to fishermen beg for them to burn it. And not knowing what that meant, like, if we want to burn this, now knowing that that would have been the best option, and seeing, you know, that, of course, come across this. But